welcome to the final episode of the season of Pack the Rock podcast, brought to you by the Hoosier Network. I'm your host, Audrey Marr, and as always, we have Carlo Barone and Kylee Corman here as well. We also have a special guest, William McDermott, here with us. Start walking on. I'm loving the fit.
Thank you.
804 Durham, as some of you guys may know him as.
Former HN member. I'm glad to be back.
Yep,
I love
WAOX.
podcasting and happy to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, guys, we haven't caught up in a while. How's everybody's Thanksgivings? How's everybody been?
Busy. Very busy.
Mm-hmm.
Nice time off.
Yeah, definitely. But, all right, well, let's get into it. We have obviously a lot to catch up on. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about the old Oak and Bucket game. Indiana lost the rivalry, fell to Purdue in West Lafayette 35-31. Starting off, what is everybody's takeaways from the game?
Really just disappointing. I mean, you knew it was, like, that's how the game was going to go. I literally texted everyone before the game, and I said, it's going to come down to the last minute. Indiana's going to have a chance to win. They're going to blow it, and Purdue's going to win. And I feel like that's pretty much what happened. So, not expected, or expected, but disappointing still.
I want to say I'm surprised, but I'm really not, especially because the last 2 weeks, man, like, they had the lead in this game almost the entire time until the last Hudson Card touchdown was like a minute 30 left. You know, it's the most typical way for IU to end their season, losing a close game. They've lost a lot of them this year. I think Louisville, Penn State, Illinois, Michigan State, and Purdue, the last three, lost by a final 10 points. It's tough, but it's the state of the program. And now clearly there's going to be some changes. So
Yeah, I think kind of I was going to go off what you said. Just losing a lot of close games. It felt like a microcosm of kind of the whole season for Indiana. Just not able to get across the finish line. They are in these games in the fourth quarter, and this was a big thing that Tom Allen talked about going into the year was they had like 8 games last year. We had 8 games last year that we needed to be able to come together and finish. They didn't finish this year, and quite frankly, it's a direct indication, I think, of poor coaching, poor game management. As part of the reason that he's not coming back.
Yeah, last year there were 7 games where they were within 1 score in the fourth quarter, and this year they were within 1 score, or like had an opportunity to win with 2 minutes left in the game.
I would even argue that they were closer this year to winning those games and losing them in more of a heartbreaking fashion than last year, because you could, like, the 1 score thing is great, but a lot of these games they were either tied or like had an opportunity to take the lead and they just folded. So it's tough when you're losing a lot of close games. Like, the record says what it is. Do I think they're better than 3-9? Yes. Do I think they're a bowl team? Absolutely not. But they did lose. I will say, when there was a 50-50 chance for them to get something going on their side, it was almost 80-20 in that regard. So, and like what Durham says, that comes down to coaching. It comes down to a lot of things, and they don't get the benefit.
A lot of it, to me, a lot of fundamental issues. Poor tackling, penalties, stuff like that, where disciplined teams, well-coached football teams kind of make up for the lack of talent with playing clean football. Indiana had to play nearly perfectly if they were to win. They didn't have much room for error. And, when you're not tackling guys at the 5-yard line and trying to strip the ball away from them, it's like that's just not going to get it done in the Big Ten.
The tackling is baffling to me. I cannot
crazy.
believe.
I mean, it's an
crazy.
effort thing. I feel like it's
like playing defensive basketball. You just gotta want 90% of it's heart. You gotta go and you gotta want to do it.
How many times? How many times was Hudson Card dang near on the ground?
They should have had
only
8 sacks.
They had one total sack throughout the
yards.
entire game. They only had 1, but they had at least 10 opportunities.
They should have had at least 6, 7, 8 sacks in that game. And he had Vaseline on his jersey, or they weren't trying to bring him down or something. Maybe they had the over or something in the game. Yeah, it was. I don't know what it was, but Tom Allen.
program's going in the dumpsters.
Tom Allen after the game, he was like, "I've never seen someone be so like caught in the backfield and then just escape every single time. And it's not like he was throwing it away to get the play over. He was getting first downs, throwing or running, and they couldn't bring him back.
It's not that he escaped. He made a play out of it every time.
And it was also like, not that this is any like reason for it, but he also was injured coming into the game. He was questionable. He had a rib injury, and like the fact that they weren't able to take him down, like even in that sense, like he was able to get out that easily. And I'm not going to blame it again on the injury, but I mean, I think that's also just really big. But overall, the defensive performance as well. I mean, the defense has been one of the highlights of this Indiana team, but this Purdue game almost seemed to be the worst performance.
Last 3 weeks, I mean, I would say their worst performance was Illinois because they let up almost 50 points. But Purdue is definitely a close second. That offense is not spectacular by any means, but they looked unbelievable in the second half. And even during the final minute of the first half, they just had drives that were... I mean, the first quarter of that game, though, both Sorsby and Hudson Card were playing like they didn't practice for the whole season. But, I mean, that second half, it reminded me of Illinois. They were going down and they're scoring every single time, and there was nothing you could do about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, unless anybody has anything else to cover on the Purdue game, but I think that's really it. It closed out the season. Obviously, the only thing that there was to play for was the old Oaken bucket, but they couldn't have anything else out of that. So it was really just for that trophy. And obviously a lot has come out of that. We'll get into that a little bit later, but let's look overall from the season. What are your overall takeaways from the season? And then we're going to look back on the round table.
Who wants to start here?
It's just another waste of a time for Indiana fans. The past 3 years, and Tom Allen said it in the presser after the Purdue game. He said, I get it, you got to win, and he's right, and he didn't win, and that's why he's not going to be the coach anymore. It's as simple as that. Great guy. It's hard to see all the players upset about him leaving, and players that fans have grown to love entering the portal, but in terms of winning football games and fielding a competitive team, it was trending in the negative direction.
Mm-hmm. I just don't even really know what to say. Being here for 4 years, we saw us three. We saw the 2020 season, and every year
me too.
Yeah, we couldn't even go to those games. And the last 3 years have just every time been such a kick in the gut to the university. It's just, I don't know. Allen's brought up the NIL thing multiple times. Former players have been bringing up the NIL thing and just saying Indiana, nothing's going to change if they don't invest more into this team. So there's that to factor into it. But this season they just had so many opportunities, and there was no reason at all for them to not follow through with those. That's my overall look at it.
The talent level, I think, in terms of the past 2 years, was at its best it's been since that 2020 season.
Yeah.
I think we all could agree on that. But once again, they're in these games and they don't finish. And that's what we've seen over the past 3 years in the 3 losing seasons. And Scott Dolson, I think he had just had enough, and a lot of the fans as well.
I will say, now that us three are seniors, we had the 2020 season. We watched that. I didn't cover the team then. I covered them the last 2 years and watched them in 2021 as a fan in the stands. There was so much hype in the first couple games of 2021. Everyone was at the football games.
That Cincinnati game was unreal.
Yeah. It was also the hottest day in this planet's history. I was sunburned for a month after that. But besides the point, there was a lot of hype. And people come to the games, and they just tailed off at the end of the year. They only went winning 2 games, 2021. Come back last year, they go 4-8. They go 3-9 again this year. So that's 7. That's 9 wins in the last 3 years total. That is definitely not going to get it done. And this
3
year,
wins in the Big Ten.
And what is it? 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
over 3 years.
And this year too, you're not going to get fan attention when you're losing, or even I wouldn't even count Akron as a win. You could even look at the only one.
It should have been a
game.
loss. And I think about that game a lot when you look at the season. I think if Indiana had lost the game, Allen might not have made it through the year.
I agree.
And I think Walt Bell would have not made it through that week. So he lasted another week because they won that game.
Because they missed a 30-yard field goal.
And, yeah.
I mean, kind of going off the Walt Bell point, I mean, this is something that I've kind of mentioned a lot throughout the podcast throughout the week, but they got the momentum at the right time. Obviously, when, like, it wasn't right away that when Rod Carey took over that role, Indiana was good, obviously, but the offense just started to pick up kind of after 2 weeks of Rod Carey in that role. So if you imagine if Rod Carey was in that role from the beginning, would they have a different record?
And I think that's one of the main issues people have with Tom Allen, the loyalty to his staff. While it's beneficial in a way to build relationships and build a culture, in terms of winning games, it's not going to mend good results. And I think, the whole question of the two quarterbacks at the start of the season as well, if Indiana had just thrown one out there and named them the starter, Brendan Sorsby was the starter against Ohio State in week 1. The trajectory of his confidence, his whole season, we kind of saw how he played pretty well at the end of the year, except for the Purdue game. It could have helped Indiana win a few of those early games against like Rutgers and Maryland. And stuff like that, and played better at Michigan. And it's just, I think Tom Allen, I feel, was coaching scared this year. Scared to lose his job.
100%.
You saw that late in games. Scared to lose. At the end of the Penn State game, the play calling, stuff like that. It kind of it gets the vibe that he was scared. And unfortunately, I thought he was in a position where he needed to coach like he had nothing to lose.
I remember there was a point in the year, it was when Sorsby and Taven Jackson were splitting snaps, and it was one of the games that Sorsby started, and they asked him after the game, they're like, did you ever like look over your shoulder after like a bad throw or anything, like thinking that like, oh, they might throw Taven? And he basically was like, me and Taven are friends, but how could you not? You're fighting for your starting job that they've told you have every single week. And it's like, if you're not doing well, they need a spark, they're going to toss the other guy in. And Durham, you're absolutely right. If they stuck with one guy from the beginning of the year, you saw how his confidence was. Yeah. It just came in week 8 versus week 3.
And even Taven, when he started that whole game at Louisville, he looked great and his confidence was going up. And then all of a sudden, one bad drive at Michigan, they pull him out of the game. And it's like, at that point, the game was lost. It's just the inability to kind of have belief in your staff. And I think Tom Allen felt like that was all he could do with the cards he was dealt.
I don't understand the whole we need a spark thing, so let's change the quarterback, because that doesn't just affect the quarterback. If number one, affects their confidence, but also number two, it affects everyone else on the team.
Chemistry
the wide
with the wide receivers.
Yep.
Exactly.
Sorsby and Donovan McCulley, I think, established a great chemistry over the last few weeks of the season.
100%.
That he could have established with Camper when he was in there, Omar Cooper before he got hurt, but he just didn't have the time. It takes a couple games for those things to develop.
I can see where he's kind of coming from. If you look at the NFL, there's certain times when the backup quarterback gets thrown in and they have an amazing... We've seen it with Josh
New England
Dobbs,
Patriots.
Tommy DeVito. But then they have their 2 or 3 games and then it gets real and the team starts going back to where they were originally. So I can see where, okay, you know what, let's just try a few things out. Do I think that the time to try things out was already halfway through the season at Michigan? Probably not. I mean, maybe, but I don't think so. But, I mean, I think at the beginning of the season, they had the talent. They might have had a good scheme, but you could just know that there was so many internal issues just from saying, okay, you've had these guys since spring. Taven and Sorsby, they've been here since the spring. It's not like they came in the fall. From the spring, you had all summer, all of camp to figure out who your guy was. And you still haven't?
Even week 1, too. In week 2, they didn't name a starting quarterback till week 3. So that battle that you talked about from the beginning of the summer was also 2 weeks into the season.
And then Taven played well against Louisville, and then he had one pretty bad stretch from that Akron game to like the first drive of the Michigan game, and they just pulled him. It was just like the leash was just...
I don't think he saw the field after the Michigan game when he got pulled.
I think he was started... Brent Sorsby started out
I think,
right after that.
after he took the reins, he ran with it.
Yeah, but also kind of going back to that spark thing. I mean, yeah, I understand changing the quarterbacks, but not when you're in Michigan playing the number 2 team in the nation. If you're looking for a spark, change the play calling. I mean, I think that's also another thing. I mean, not that this is of any similarity when it comes to basketball, but you saw it in basketball when they decided to change the zone defense with Louisville. Then they won the game. That's what won them the game. So I think it's definitely not the same thing. But, I mean, try a change in play calling. That's what you saw when Rod Carey found, like, they didn't change any of their actual play calls. They just found it in a way that works. So instead of switching quarterbacks every drive, I think it's a better way to maybe change up the play calls mid-game.
You're absolutely right. They should have. Walt Bell should not have been coaching at all. Rod Carey. I'm being honest. What was he? 2-21 as a head coach at Mass or something like that. His record was terrible. I don't know how he had a job. With all due respect, but Rod Carey, when it took a week or two, but if you got to think, if that was at the beginning of the season, their offense would have been a lot better the entire time. So I think schematically they're going to be having a different offense, assuming Rod Carey's not the next head coach. Well either way,
can get into that.
we'll get that later. But either way, they're going to have a different offense because it'll be Carey's offense instead of Rod Carey taking Walt Bell's offense. You know, the offense didn't change. It's just the coordinator. So once they change to what Rod Carey really wants to do, I feel like they're going to have a better chance. The problem is they might not have anyone from this year's team left. So that's a
they will.
thing.
They will. They'll have Taven and
that was more of like a
but
like
I get
a joke.
it.
But you get what I'm saying.
Well, one thing, another thing I wanted to add is, like, when you look at that Ohio State game week 1, it just irks me that with the option they did, the triple option, it's like they knew they weren't going to win. And it's like, okay, it's Ohio State. I get it. You're not supposed to win. But it's the first game of the year. You could at least go in with some belief.
You could try.
They were down by 7 at half.
And it's like they went into the game and were like, well, we know we're going to lose. Let's just try to find out as much as we can about the quarterbacks. And then they didn't even find anything out because they didn't throw the ball. And it just... It was that scared coaching, that approach to play not to lose. You got to play to win the game. I think Tom Allen just coached scared this entire year. And by the time it was like, after I'd say the Rutgers game, he was like, oh, crap. Like, we got only a few games left. I better start winning if I want to keep my job. That's when they finally were like, we're sticking with the quarterback. We're changing the coordinator. That stuff. That's when it got real.
Last-ditch efforts.
Yeah, and it's too little too late. Too little too late.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to also look back, if anybody's been tuning in, we're going to look back at the roundtable that we did in the beginning of the season. Durham, you're just going to kind of be here. You can read through it and give some reactions. You can debate our takes. Yeah. But, some of us had, I feel like all of us had a take that we're not the happiest with, kind of coming out of the season. But first pick was MVP, and Carlo, you were first. You want to kind of go through your pick?
Yeah, this is probably my best pick on the round table. I picked Aaron Casey. Obviously, far and away the best player on the team. The only guy that has, I feel like, potential right now to go in the NFL. And I also did say he'll make first or second team, and believe it or not, they announced those today, and he made first team in the media, but second team in the coaches. So I guess you could say I was right there. But I mean, that was a pick that aged like wine, so I was happy with that.
My MVP was Jalen Lucas, which I feel like coming off of last season's not a terrible pick, but I don't think he was utilized well this season. Teams were prepared for him this time, and between Walt Bell and Rod Carey, he was never utilized the way that I would have liked to see him. I would have liked to see him a little bit more in that receiver position because he's smaller. He's not going to get through those big Michigan guards, so... I don't know. I'm not mad about it, but I don't think he was utilized well this year.
For my MVP pick, I went with Andre Carter. I did think, again, that's also a pick that I feel like isn't the worst looking from the outside in going into the beginning of the season, because in the beginning of the season, he did have a very good, he was playing very well, and he played pretty consistently throughout the rest of the season. Obviously not as up there as Aaron Casey was, but I feel like that would be more of maybe a newcomer of the year pick in my eyes for Andre Carter, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not mad about my MVP pick. Obviously, I think it was Aaron Casey coming at the end of the season. But Offensive Player of the Year next, Carlo. You start off once again.
This pick aged like absolute milk.
Oh my God.
I picked Cam Camper, which was a risky pick. I will say he had a great start to last year. He was one of the best receivers in the Big Ten. Gets hurt, so I kind of predicted that he might bounce back. And I mean, he had a few good games, a few good catches, but like he was obviously not himself the whole year.
Same lingering knee issue. I think that he was dealing with, so I think they just wanted to get it right.
Yeah, and it didn't go well, but wishing the best for him, I'll say.
My Offensive Player of the Year was Josh Henderson, which I'm not really too terribly mad about. The scheme of the offense got totally jacked with between whatever issues Indiana was having between the play calling, different coordinators, whatever. And Josh also got hurt. I think his impact, however, came not from scoring, but from the pass blocking. He was huge in there. When he was out, there was a lot more rushing and sacks on the quarterback rather than when he was in. So I think that's where he fits into that offense.
He was the third down back that would be the pass blocking guy. He had
a huge one against Purdue. I noticed that. That ended up in a pretty big play that I thought was impressive.
Yeah, I feel like when Josh Henderson came in, definitely the running game was a lot stronger. But for my Offensive Player of the Year pick, I went with Jalen Lucas. Obviously, kind of going off of Kylie's point, what she said for her MVP pick. I mean, he definitely wasn't utilized in the way that anybody was expecting. But I think, obviously, he ended the year with that 100-yard kick return touchdown. So, I mean, there was that. But I think everybody was shocked to see the way that he was barely utilized this season.
He was a penalty away from having another one at Illinois, too.
That as well. But yeah, did you have an Offensive Player of the Week pick?
Not before the season. I think, obviously, Lucas, Camper's a good pick. There's just scrolling through. There's a few of these that I'd like to comment on when we get there, but I probably would have gone with either. Nobody went with who I think we all would agree is the actual Offensive Player of the Year, Donovan McCulley.
Yep.
He had a great season. Entered the portal yesterday, I believe. He's going to get some good looks there. He's a good player. The chemistry between him and Brendan Sorsby really came alive. And, obviously wishing the best for him. He still could come back to Indiana, but I think just the transition he made from quarterback to receiver, it took some time. And towards the end of the year, he was probably one of the better receivers in the conference.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see where he ends up and how he turns out. He's a fun player to watch.
Yeah, I've already seen some schools pop up. I mean, not really, but like interest would probably be Texas and Florida, big schools like that. I think.
Oh, geez, good for him.
Crazy if he gets up there. But Defensive Player of the Year, Carly, you want to start again?
Well, I picked Aaron Casey, so I mean, I guess you could double down for that. But I did say Andre Carter, and I mean, Carter's seasons is hard to evaluate because he had such a good impact at the beginning, and they kind of tailed off at the end. But he would pop up in moments now. But I mean, do I think he's the best? I would say he was probably he was definitely a top 4 starter for IU this season. But he got hyped up a lot in preseason, and whether he lived up to those expectations, at the beginning of the season looked like it, but he kind of tailed off. So I feel like he did face a lot of doubles just because he's a really big dude. But that is also more respect to his ability to beat people one-on-one. So do I think he was the best defensive player? No. I would probably put him 3rd or 4th to end this season.
Mm-hmm. I had Noah Pierre, which again, I think just about every single one of my picks got hurt. I was thinking about, I'm pretty sure Jalen Lucas did it, but I think
that's
for
crazy.
Breakout Player of the Year, I have Omar Cooper Jr., so...
Don't pick anybody next year.
I'm a curse. Well, there is no next year, Durham.
Stop.
Oh.
Dang. It just got really sad.
I think he still had a huge role on this defense. The secondary looked a little bit terrible this year. At the beginning of the year, it was great. I will not ever get over Marvin Harrison Jr. being held to 2 catches and 18 yards. That is the least amount of...
Take a picture of that stat line.
when he's 3
Stop
catches,
the count.
200 yards, 3 touchdowns in the NFL.
That is the least productive game he's had all season. So
That's
shout out-
crazy to think.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to say, yeah, Ohio State was dealing with their own quarterback issues there, because they,
I mean,
whatever.
They had the question,
McCord
but they
turned out
never.
okay.
Yeah.
right, but they at the beginning they had like a little battle.
Yeah, it was a battle. It was questionable heading into the game.
But even when he did get hurt, he was such a leader on the team. I know that I can't really imagine what he's going through, not being able to. He's been on this team for 6 years. Yeah. He's been through so much, and then to not get to finish out the season just has to be tough. But I mean, he was on the sidelines. He was always there helping out his guys. Someone got hurt during the Purdue game, and he was out there on the field with him.
He's the only player.
He was very involved.
He's a leader.
He really is.
And it definitely hurt Indiana to not have him on the field.
But I think it also says a lot that he was able to travel with them. I think everybody was like, we even saw, I think we commented, I don't know what game it was, maybe Illinois, that there was barely anybody that was able to travel with the team, but Noah Pierre was there. Noah Pierre came to Purdue. Noah Pierre was pretty much everywhere with the team. And even with his injury, I mean, sometimes a lot of guys aren't able to travel. So, again, I think that just says a lot about his leadership.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going through his social media right now. He's Penix for Heisman, retweeting Aaron Casey stat lines, interception, stuff like that. I think a guy who had his mark on Indiana football, a good player, and unfortunately it's over. I definitely see him having some type of involvement in football in his life going forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, for my defensive player of the year, I'm not mad about this at all. I picked Aaron Casey, another leader on this team. Pretty much neck and neck was Noah Pierre and Aaron Casey as the leaders of this team. But yeah, obviously the MVP of this season. I think it was we were just stuck between who we would pick for which. So I think I wanted to put Aaron Casey as my MVP, but I said in here he's the leader the defense needs, and him and Audrey Carter were a pretty good 1-2 punch, especially in the beginning of the season. As you said, wasn't really seen heading into the later bit of the season, which I mean was pretty much throughout the entire defense. I mean, so a lot of people were saying that this was one of the best defenses in the conference in the beginning of the season. Then they
looked like it for
they did look like it
about a month or so.
I'll throw out a name that I thought had a really good year in a secondary that, like we talked about, and like Kylee said, really struggled towards the tail end of the season. But Philip Dunham had a really good year. He wasn't honorable mention Big Ten, but Kobe Minor was. I'm not sure how that happened, but I thought Philip Dunham, just by the eye test, was the best defensive back on the roster. 3 interceptions, really good season. He's going to be a big portal get for somebody if he doesn't come back to Indiana. We talked about the secondary struggles, ability to tackle and play the ball, but he was a guy who really held firm out there, and I think had a good year.
Yeah, his season just might be defined by that tackle right on like the 5-yard line. Yeah. He could have got the guy down, but went to rip the ball out and just let him walk right through. And I mean, I think he was benched after that. I'm pretty sure that he got taken out of the game after that.
I think after that, or after he got an injury. I don't know who it was against. Was it Rutgers? It was one of their games at home. He went down, and it looked like a pretty scary injury. He went into the locker room after, and then after that game, they were looking at Josh Sanguinetti, I think it was, to really take over that role, and he kind of did. He definitely came up with a bigger impact heading into the end of the season. But
well, he's another guy like Noah. He's been here for 6 years. He's been through the ups and downs. He saw a lot of playing time last year, and I mean, when you're in that position, you have to be making those plays, and you have to want it, and you have to be really putting it all out there.
Mm-hmm. All right, breakout player of the year next. Do you still want to keep with going first?
I mean, I had Jalen Lucas. I mean, it was easy to pick him after last year. He had a lot better season last year than he did this year. I think Allen, I said in here, I said to her, he can tailor the plays to his strengths now because he had them. Which I guess he tried for at least the month of the season. He had the triple option, but every time he called that, even you were calling that at Purdue, it just didn't work. So, I mean, not a bad pick. Do I regret it? No. I think Jalen Lucas just could have had a better season overall.
Yeah, I think for him going forward, I don't really think he should be in the backfield. I think he should be in the passing game. It's difficult for him to run through the tackles and stuff like that. And I think when Rod Carey came in, we saw a whole lot of him more in the slot, swing passes, stuff of that nature. Because you get him in open field, he's going to make a few miss, and that's how he's going to get his yardage, not on the ground through the tackles or on dives and stuff like that.
Yeah, and there are smaller backs that are able to do that, even at the NFL level, but he's just not one of those guys.
I mean, he's young, right? Like, he's 19, 20 years old. He's just not...
he's 19.
Yeah, he's not
19.
physically mature to the point like those smaller NFL running backs. So I definitely think he could get to a point in his football career where you can run him more, but right now, that has to be a point of emphasis for him in the offseason, get in the weight room more, get bigger, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kylee, how about you with your
I had Omar Cooper Jr., which, again, I'm really not mad at.
I think that was the best pick on here.
Yeah. What game was his game? Was it the Akron game?
I think it was the first game that Cam Camper was not playing.
I'm pretty sure Taven was the quarterback.
I'll do some research.
It was the Indiana State game. He had over 100 yards.
It was, yeah.
There you go.
Okay, maybe not.
So the Indiana State game, it was mostly Taven. I think him and Taven really had a good, solid connection, maybe better than him and Sorsby did. He didn't do as well with Sorsby out on the field. But, yeah, I'm not mad about it. He had that Indiana State game, and I remember I pulled up the receipts a few podcasts ago. So I called it. So,
I mean, I think he was definitely one of the more explosive weapons Indiana had on the outside after Camper's injury. The good route runner, good player, you know.
And he's young. Yeah, he's
sophomore.
a redshirt freshman. He's got time.
Mm-hmm. I think it goes back to the point of view of him with Taven Jackson. Obviously, it was the whole comfortability factor was Donovan McCulley had more of a comfort with Brendan Sorsby. And then I think it was just two completely different systems with two completely different quarterbacks. So I think that may be another point because...
And just to teeter-totter, sorry to interrupt you, but to teeter-totter through the season, you just can't do that.
Exactly.
You got to stick to one and an identity, and they just didn't do that. Yeah,
so I think that could also be a point of who ends up staying, who ends up entering the transfer portal is if Taven ends up staying, does Omar Cooper end up staying? And I think obviously they both have a lot of growing to do, and I think it also all depends on who gets hired as coach, which we'll get into in a second. But I'm kind of deflecting off of my breakout player of the year pick.
Why is that?
I really don't have anything to back me up on this.
Didn't even see the field.
He didn't play one snap.
I said Dexter Williams.
He dressed, though.
He dressed. Okay, I really did think, because, again, we didn't know, when we were making this, we didn't know who was going to be quarterback, and we didn't know what Brendan Sorsby or Taven Jackson looked like on the field. So I couldn't go back and edit this.
They made it seem like he was going to be an option to them.
They really did. So I think, obviously, Dexter entered the transfer portal. I think if he does land at a school that really utilizes him and makes it a priority that he's the quarterback that they're set on, he could definitely have a very, very good year and very successful rest of his college career.
It could be hard for him to land somewhere like super great just because he hasn't played football in a year.
Yeah.
Before then, he only played in a few games. They were great flashes, but it's kind of like the backup quarterback syndrome where all of a sudden the backup quarterback's looking a little bit nicer than the starter. But I hope the best for him, obviously. That's a tough injury to come back from. He's had a lot of health issues, like a lot of Indiana quarterbacks. But
yeah,
we'll see how he ends up.
Yeah, I wish I had more to back me up on that, but I really don't. I do think he was a great leader as well. You could, whenever you saw him on the sideline, he was there talking to Taven, talking to Sorsby, talking to the wide receivers, even just talking to literally anybody on the bench. So he was definitely someone there to be as a source on the bench, I think, or on the sidelines. But newcomer of the year next. Do you want to?
Yeah, I picked Taven Jackson. I guess easy pick from the start. I said one thing's for sure, he will play, and he did. He showed some good, a lot more bad, and eventually that was the reason he was benched. He was easily the biggest transfer that they had seen this offseason, so it was a pretty easy pick, but didn't end up taking that role. So.
Mm-hmm.
I said Andre Carter, which if you look at all of the newcomers, I think that's fair.
I think it's fair, definitely.
I think Philip Liddy is a guy that's kind of gone
under the radar.
Yeah, under the radar for
I
Indiana.
mentioned him. Anthony Jones, Philip Liddy, but I settled on Carter.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had a really good season. And he's also got a great story to him, too, with this whole situation. And I know you obviously, the whole NIL thing with Hoosier Connect, he had a segment of that and talked a bit about that background, and just a really well-rounded guy. And I think he's a good player too. I think he tweeted out like 2 days ago, like decisions or something. So we'll see if he ends up portaling, but I think right now he's still kind of mulling it over.
Yeah. Well, for my newcomer of the year I picked EJ Williams. I don't think he was the stand. I think, again, Andre Carter is probably who stands out in the newcomer section. But EJ Williams, I think especially at the end of the season, he started to get more and more comfortable and utilized in the offensive scheme. But it was also the fact he did get injured, and I think injuries have plagued him throughout his entire college career. But I think it goes back to I'm just saying comfortability factor pretty much throughout all my answers, but it goes back to that factor. And I think if he does end up staying and he really ends up working with whoever's at quarterback, if Taven Jackson stays, he could definitely be up there. But boldest predictions, I think this is our second last one, but
we can go a little quicker through these.
Yeah.
I said Indiana gets both their Big Ten wins on the road. They ended up not getting any on the road. But I will say, Penn State,
they should have.
Illinois, and Purdue were all winnable games.
Yeah.
And like we talked about earlier, they just did. They had no luck, and I don't even say luck. They just folded in the last minute of each of these games. Illinois and Purdue probably being the two hardest ones, letting up touchdown with a minute 30 left in the Purdue game. Illinois losing on a walk-off touchdown. Their road schedule was definitely hard in some sense. Like Michigan, Maryland, Penn State were hard on paper, but I don't regret this pick because I think I did a little bit of research for it. I want to say, but they had played Maryland well last year. Michigan was always a given; they were never going to win. Same thing with Penn State. But Illinois and Purdue were very much unknown, like IU was at the beginning of the year, and they honestly didn't turn out much better than they did anyway. So I don't regret this pick, but they only got one Big Ten win all year. But I think if they played those two games better, they could have gotten two.
My bold prediction was Indiana beats Louisville at Lucas Oil Stadium, which they were so close to doing. I also have written in this that if they were to win that game, it would have changed the course for the entire IU season, and I fully believe that.
I agree.
It's kind of like that Cincinnati game in 2021. If Micah McFadden was never ejected, Tom Allen probably still has a job and maybe even an extension.
An extension.
Yeah, because he had in his contract every year he reaches a bowl.
It's one more.
Yeah. So
I sent that meme in the chat, or it's like the little domino is like Micah McFadden getting ejected, and then it's the big domino, Tom Allen getting fired.
So it's kind of unfortunate, but especially since Louisville's pretty good now. Ranked? Are they ranked? They were ranked.
They're going to be in the ACC championship
Yeah.
game.
They just lost to Kentucky, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're pretty overrated. I was not too impressed with them when Indiana. I called that game for WIOX, and they had some good pieces, but
Another
like we
game
talked
that
about,
Indiana
should have won.
Yeah.
Should have won.
Well, my bold prediction, I'm not mad about. This is probably my most accurate prediction, besides my defensive player of the year pick. I said I don't think Cam Camper is a set in stone wide receiver 1, which, I mean, I can't. It's true, but it was because he pretty much got injured. He wasn't himself throughout the entire season. I think I said that EJ Williams would be the wide receiver 1. I don't think any of us were preparing for how Donovan McCulley would break out this season.
That was,
yeah.
pleasant surprise.
It was definitely a surprise. So I think, I mean, I was right, but I wasn't right about the EJ Williams part. But I think once Cam Camper is healthy, I think he will be.
He's a good player when he's
really
healthy.
good. Yeah, he really is. But yeah, well, I can go straight into my record prediction too. Then
I was gonna
That's
say
our
we all
last
said
thing,
4
yeah.
and 8.
We
We
all-
don't
yeah.
really need to touch on
We
that
don't
too
need to
much.
touch on this. But
Theoretically,
Yeah.
like, you guys got it right.
yeah.
Indiana just didn't.
Yeah.
They had like 5 opportunities to get the 4th win, and they never could.
They should be like 7 and 5 right now.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
if they won all their close games, they are
At least
bowling.
6 and 6. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for the season. I mean, a lot of stuff has happened since Purdue, which was literally, 4 days ago?
Yeah.
But obviously on Sunday morning, Tom Allen got fired. A lot to cover there. But yeah, let's start with initial thoughts on the
I mean,
call.
it needed to happen. It's 3 straight losing seasons. Like I mentioned, 9 wins in 3 years, only 3 Big Ten wins. You're a Power 5 team. You're in arguably you could say the best conference in football. I disagree. I think the SEC, with anyone with a brain, would agree. But it's what they like to pride themselves on. You're not going to get it done. He was one of the longest tenured coaches in the Big Ten, and he had one of the least amount of wins. I mean, that's not going to get it done. I understand IU's not the most prestigious football program there is, but after that 2020 season, they liked, which if you guys remember, they didn't even win their bowl game that year. They saw him trending upward, even with 2019, and then ever since he's put the pen to the paper, it's looked bad. $20 million buyout, I don't know where they're getting that money. Now I understand it's only 15, but
It's
Credit
the
credit
donors.
to
Yeah.
Coach Allen for kind of negotiating with Dolson and the university to bring the buyout down. I thought that was kind of like
that was classy.
Yeah,
for
good,
sure.
good thing for him to do. There's no question he cares about the direction of the program and cares about the kids who have played for him. And it's a shame, but like you said, Carlo, it needed to happen. And frankly,
business.
it was probably a year overdue.
I agree. I
Yeah.
think that the only reason he wasn't fired last year is because of the buyout. But then they saw it again and they realized that they probably needed to do it.
I think the best move for Indiana, and obviously this is something you can only know in hindsight, would have been to fire him last year. Because if we're being really real, at this time next year, who's coming in to take over this Indiana team? Are they really going to be better than 3-9? You've lost 15 people to the portal.
with
They
the-
might come back.
Yeah.
All 5 of your starting linemen
That's crazy.
gone.
That's
Whether that be
That is
one of
bad.
them's going to the draft, everyone else is hitting the portal.
What? He was a senior anyway, so he wasn't coming back.
Right,
Yeah.
but they're gone. So I mean, it's going to be probably a rebuilding decade, but not even a rebuilding season. But I mean, it would have at least given Indiana a little bit more time in the NIL era to try to play some catch up, I guess.
I think kind of going off of that, obviously, I do agree with the point of it should have happened last year. I think this year had a great opportunity to be a rebuilding year with Taven Jackson. And, I mean, again, a lot of these people wouldn't have come. A lot of these people only came because they wanted to be coached by Tom Allen. But with the people that were on this roster, it goes back to that talent factor that you were saying. They had the talent. It was just how it was utilized in the end. But everyone's heard a lot of names, but I want to get your predictions on, or a couple of names that you guys have heard that you think would be interesting picks for coach.
I'm going to be honest. I think There's a lot of names thrown around. I mean, you've seen the memes of John Gruden taking it over. I forgot who it was, but they just got hired at San Diego State. They got to move fast. By the time that
It's got to be by the end of the week.
Yeah. By the time that people watch this, they're probably going to have a new head coach. I will throw out a dark horse who I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I haven't been following it maybe as tightly as other people have. I've had busy few days, with class and in life. But I would not be shocked if they had named Rod Carey head coach. I would not be shocked. I know he was on their list of people they're interviewing. I know they like him a lot. They promoted him to offensive coordinator. They obviously did better at the end of the season. I wouldn't be surprised. Do I think that's the right move? Absolutely not, because I think they need more voice from the outside. I think firing Allen essentially means that, hey, we need to get a different opinion in this building. And if you hire Carey as the head coach...
He didn't do great at Temple.
Well, yeah.
You do get that aspect of potentially returning players, though.
That's true. But it's not like he's going to... Even if he doesn't get the head coaching job, he's still going to be offensive coordinator. So his presence will still be there. Will he, though?
The new guy might just want a whole new staff.
Yeah, it might clear house.
Ooh, he did. I thought... that's true. I guess I was thinking more because he signed the contract for this year and next.
I think they could retain him if he wanted, but I think if it were me, I would just let the new head coach decide.
They definitely need more ideas from the outside, but I wouldn't be surprised if they try to go in that route, but I don't think they should.
I mean, it's anyone's guessing game.
Yeah.
No one really knows anything. Coach searches...
Quote Galen.
It's a guessing game. Let's just pick a name out of a hat.
It is. I've been seeing this stuff on Twitter, and it's ridiculous. And I remember this freshman year on the basketball side of things when the whole Brad Stevens saga was going on. People get ridiculous during coaching searches. Looking at the flights, man, come on.
Matt Canada.
I saw that today.
Matt Canada.
We're not looking for a job, I heard.
We're not talking about that.
And he is employing.
I said
match made in heaven.
Matt Canada knew that the Indiana position was going to be opening up at the end of the year, so he said, screw the Steelers. I want a head coaching job. I want to leave my nice, great job in the NFL and go coach Indiana.
Wasn't it? And they got 400 yards of total offense.
That's crazy. Most in 59 games. Yeah. That's crazy.
I mean, come on,
and
Mike.
the timing of it, guys. The timing of it.
Yeah.
A week before. We'll see. But, I mean, someone on Twitter brought it up. They have the levels on, the coach tracking, whatever, highly likely, and then you never in a million years.
Yeah.
And Woodson was on that never in a million years side of things. So, unless you're in the program, even if you're in the program, I don't know if you really know. I think the only person that truly knows is probably Scott Dolson. Maybe. Who knows?
Well, I'll throw a name out there. Mike Hart. Former current Michigan running backs coach, former Colts running back, was on the Indiana staff a few years ago. He's interviewing, I've heard, and I've seen, I think. I think that's a guy who's kind of under the radar that I would not be shocked if they brought him back.
Yeah, I was going to go with Mike Hart too, but you pretty much covered everything. Not okay. But I think another person that it's not number one, there's not any ranking or anything, but someone that has been brought up pretty much the most out of all these people is Jason Candle out of Toledo. I'm looking back at your Rod Carey pick. I don't know if they go with him because I think that they do want a clean house, essentially. I think they want to use this as a rebuilding year. Not that I know that they're going to get rid of Rod Carey, but I don't think that I think I saw somewhere that they're not even considering him, but he wants to try for it. But yeah, apart from the coaching changes, there's also a lot of changes within the portal. Pretty much all of the number one starters in every position has headed to the portal. So, I mean, are there any names that have shocked you guys from what you've seen?
I will say I was very surprised how fast Sorsby transferred. Like
Same day, yeah.
he must have known going into the last week that he was going to. I'm sure he had a thing in his head. If Allen gets fired, I'm leaving house.
I would like to bring Joe Brennan back, who is sitting in that seat yelling at me about Sorsby will never leave.
I was shocked. I said the
He
same.
still might not.
He might not.
He might not.
But he was
thing.
saying he wasn't even going to put his name in the portal.
I didn't expect him to.
I
be
think
honest.
a lot of
I
them,
did.
it's kind of let me put my name out there, see what kind of
Regardless,
schools are
you're
giving
on a
me
new
Let's see what happens
responses.
at IU.
And then who they hire, maybe I'll talk to the coach and we'll go from there. Like, it's just, at this point, it's just all speculation.
Yeah. So no one knows anything.
Yeah.
Shout out Galen.
Shut up, Galen.
That's what he put on his Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Galen tweeted like an hour ago. He just said nobody knows anything or something like that, which is it's just true. I mean, there's all this
The
stuff.
flight track, like, come on, man.
We're really
The
digging.
flight
Yeah,
tracking
like-
has been very entertaining to me because just on a regular day, what are you doing flying from the middle of nowhere to the middle of nowhere? It is interesting.
Flights are like
True.
6 in the morning. It's like, geez, man.
I will say someone tweeted out that there was a flight going from Bloomington to Clemson. So Dabo Sweeney,
Bring him home.
to
Bring him home.
I'm telling you, Lee Corso. No, I'm joking. That's a complete joke. But I'll just throw it. Justin Fry, Ohio State O-line coach. Willie Fritz, Tulane head coach. He's done a good job there. Don't be shocked, Antoine Randall, Lions wide receivers coach. He doesn't have that head coaching experience, but
I would love to know what that phone call's like because you know that they probably reached
greatest
out to him.
player in IU
They
football
probably
history.
reached out to him, and I imagine him picking up the phone and being like, why would I want this job? I'm staying with the Lions. Like,
I think they have some pretty good receivers over there. So
yeah. I don't think him. That'd be great. That'd be awesome. But I just don't think that's happening.
Is he really ready for a head coaching job, though?
no.
Absolutely not.
no.
You know who said they want a head coaching job? Ryan Clark. He's not an Indiana guy, but
Talking about the analyst, the guy for the Steelers? Are you kidding me?
Greg
No.
Olson said he would be open
I
to
saw
Panthers,
that.
yeah.
And,
I think
and
that's-
Ryan Clark was like,
I think that's-
I'm also open to head coaching opportunities. Have your people talk to my
Hey, I am
people.
too, guys. I'm open to head coaching
Hey,
opportunities.
We're taking a coaching of football class
It's-
next semester.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, you guys are going to be primed for the season.
I don't know why they're not interviewing
Defensive
me.
coordinator, offensive coordinator, head coach.
Put us in charge.
Yeah.
What,
There we go.
what gives me a defense vibe? Because you were quick to say defense.
You were talking about Ryan Clark. I don't know.
So you're a Steelers fan. They've
Yeah.
had some good defense. Steel
Yeah, Troy
Curran.
Polamalu. Yeah.
I'm a Packers fan. They had some
Watt
good,
is the
good
best,
offenses.
Best player on the planet. If you didn't see that from the press conference earlier today,
Whoa.
Mike Tomlin said he's the best defensive player on the planet.
He's good confidence.
He's a good player.
He's got confidence in his guy. I mean, I guess Patrick Mahomes just isn't a thing anymore. So.
I think it was
George Jordan
defensive. He said defensive.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess.
Then yeah, there really is no argument.
Okay.
Let's see
I
what
think
test you'll do
TJ
better on. If you do better on the
True,
defensive
true.
test and you do better on the offensive play
there
calling
test?
I don't know. It's your
I'm down
class.
with it.
Class, man.
Yeah, we'll find out.
All right.
All right. Well, definitely a lot of questions, but we usually close out our podcast with predictions. We've done a lot of predictions, but I'm gonna give out one final prediction for everybody to answer, and that is what will next season look like for the Hoosiers.
Nobody knows. That's all I can say.
Honestly, I said this. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I mean, it's pretty bad now,
Yeah.
but like, I
Their
will
schedule's
say,
pretty easy next year too. I was going through it.
yeah,
Is it?
I mean,
Florida International, Western Illinois,
their non-conference definitely
Charlotte
gets easier.
is their non-conference.
Yeah, but I think expect a similar season to this year, but I think the difference will be I think that they get blown out a little bit more on those tests. I mean, what are their conference games that are new next year? I think they play Oregon and Washington.
UCLA.
They play
UCLA.
UCLA and Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
They also play
At
Northwestern
UCLA.
and Nebraska.
Yeah. Okay, maybe it gets a
I'll
little
give
bit
them
easier.
4 night. Maybe.
I-
That still
I'll
seems
give
a little
him-
high.
I mean, we don't even know who the head coach
Okay,
is. We're making record predictions.
It's true.
So you said those 3 non-conference.
That's what the
think they
3
should win.
non-con.
But do they get a Big Ten win? Is the bigger question.
Northwestern,
They'll
I
get
think they
one or
could.
two.
Northwestern was
Northwestern
good
last
this
year.
year.
They're bowling.
I think they're going 6 and 6.
It's true.
No
I
way.
think they're going 6 and 6.
With the new coach. Okay,
So with the transfer portal, I just think it's so like the potential. Like we've seen teams. Okay, I was gonna say Colorado, but obviously
Woof.
they didn't have the season they wanted. But we've seen teams just immediately become nationally relevant, right? After a hire and some portal additions. If it's done
That was
well,
also Deion Sanders.
if it's done well, and if it's done right,
There you go. If it's done well, if it's done right, do you think
Indiana can
Indiana's
be a
going
bowl
to
I
do
was
that?
gonna say let's talk about the program we're talking about here, though. You know,
I don't think Indiana's
their
prepared
coaches-
to throw around to out of all the people just on the offense that they have gone. Indiana, I don't think is ready to throw in that much money to a whole new team. And if you're going to get good players from the portal, you're going to have to throw good chunks of money around to just a few, even just a few players.
not to mention they have to pay the new coach.
Yeah.
And-
Probably new coaches.
Tom Allen even said, kind of in that text he sent, that, you know, with the changes with NIL, like Indiana was in the right direction, but in terms of the other Big Ten football schools like Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and even coming in Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA, Indiana's got to be far better in the football landscape of NIL. And hopefully that's something that collectives and the university kind of understands. And the new head coach also understands. I think that's a big factor going forward and going into next year if they're able to, you know, make some moves in the portal and make things interesting.
Yeah. Well, I do think my prediction is I think that they'll be better than everybody thinks. Not that they'll be fantastic, but I also think that a lot of these guys in the portal aren't gone. I think that they will have some convincing. The coaching staff will do some convincing, and they'll come back. I don't know who that will be just yet, but I don't think everybody's gone just yet.
Everyone in the O-line leaving did kind of surprise me. Like, Bostad really, I feel like he really improved that position room. So I wouldn't be surprised if 1 or 2 of them come back.
Yeah.
Do we think Donovan McCulley and Sorsby come back?
No,
No.
not both of
not
them.
No,
both,
not both
yeah.
of them. No.
One?
I don't think so.
I think both of them actually. Dang. I think
McCulley's
I think he
McCulley's
can
gone.
land somewhere
You think
pretty
he's
good
gone?
for
I
some
think-
money.
Yeah, he got.
Yeah.
That's what it all is now. It comes down to money. And I
There's
think
numbers floating around already for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a bidding war.
Really
Modern day
is.
college football.
Really is. Well, that's a lot of questions that throughout this whole season we haven't really had a lot of answers throughout the season. But
We're just kind of saying stuff. Like, we're just saying stuff.
I know
like,
we're just like
Nobody knows
maybe
no
this-
one really knows
maybe
anything.
this will happen. I don't
Maybe.
know.
We're really just it's really just a prediction podcast at this point. But a lot of answers will be made throughout the coming weeks. But I think this may be it.
I think it might be.
it.
Unless we do one when the coach comes. But
Yeah, that's a possibility. But I think right now, maybe we prepare. This might be the last episode. But
Wow.
Maybe we
first
should
off,
mention
wait.
all of us wearing matching shirts before we
We should.
Plug the new merch.
finally got some
Yeah.
HN merch when my time with HN is pretty much wrapping up.
Thanks.
I'll hang it.
We'll frame it.
Put it in the
frame it.
rafters.
So yeah, the shirt will be framed. Yeah, we all decided to go with the new HN polos for the pod. It was kind of a last minute
Shout out
decision.
Durham wearing it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for
And the
letting me
headband.
one. You want it back or what?
Yeah. What size is it?
Medium. There's no large.
Yeah, you could probably say. It's probably fine.
All right, let's go hoop,
Yeah.
guys.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning into Pack the Rock this season. I've been your host, Audrey Marr, joined alongside Carlo Barone, Kylee Corman, and special guest, Derm,
Thank you for having me on.
today. Thanks for coming on and being a part of our last episode.
I do
This
want to
was-
say one thing before we close.
Have
This
a
will
great
be-
day, Leo.
No, not on a serious note. This is the last time that obviously Kylie and I and Durham, we're all seniors. to you two, I do want to say thank you for everything this year. Stop. You guys like go.
We're just talking. Go ahead.
I mean, obviously, it was a rough season on the field, but with you guys, it was really fun. And this is my last, obviously, beat, and I don't know how many men's basketball games I'll do. Hopefully, I do one more, so Purdue's not my last one. But I've had a great time on this beat the last 2 years for as little wins as they've had. And working with you guys was a lot of fun. And it was busy. It was hard at times. But I picked this beat by myself, and I would pick you guys 100 times over again. So I just want to say thank you for you both. It was a good time.
I will say this, and this feels like out of left field because I'm just
Go ahead, take the mic.
But coming to Indiana, like I love football. I'm a football fan. All my teams are terrible. I'm a Giants fan. I was never brave enough to be on the IU football beat, and I commend you guys for doing that for a whole season. I did a game 2 years ago for the Hoosier Network. I filled in for Jack Ankeny, a home game against Idaho. I just couldn't do it. And I commend you guys, all the tailgates you miss and stuff like that.
It's a bigger sacrifice than people think.
It is, and people appreciate it. So good on you guys for sticking through the whole year.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, Derm.
That was a really emotional ending. I was not expecting that. But the same goes to you, Carlo and Kylee. Obviously, you guys definitely. This whole season definitely, I think, goes with the fact that it wasn't expected. But I think everybody handled it with grace, especially you guys closing it out. And oh my God. Oh my God. I don't want to.
I'm not real emotional or sappy, but yeah, I appreciate you guys.
Come on.
All right. Well,
Thanks.
yeah. Seriously, it's been a very, very great time working with you guys.
It's been fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Can't believe
Okay,
it's
so I
over.
think we should do another podcast. Stay tuned for next week. I don't know.
Well, if this isn't the last one, it's going to be really awkward for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. It'll be really. If we do another one, no one tune in. No, I'm kidding. But okay. Yeah. Any more closing thoughts? Or I think we're good. But yeah. Thanks everybody if you tuned in. And thank you for tuning into this episode. Hope everybody has a great week. And yeah, I was gonna say we'll see you next time. But all right.
See you next season.
Later. Bye.